Welcome back to another episode of Just Gay Stuff. I'm Lauren.
And I am Jess.
Now, today is beautiful in sunny Queensland here.
It is. It's quite warm for a winter's day.
It is quite warm. Surprisingly, we've had a few cold days lately.
Very chilly. Very
chilly. But today is about to get even more beautiful.
It's going to warm up in here.
It is going to warm up here. We might get a little bit spicy.
Ooh, yes. I love a bit of spice.
Because we have another special guest.
We do have another fabulous guest.
We do, and they are an incredible businessman who was listed as a 40 under 40 winner.
40 under 40. Entrepreneur
in 2023. A wonderful gender illusionist who you may have seen on Australia's Got Talent.
As the wonderful Kara Zmatiq.
Now, I'm ashamed. It took me a long time to get the flow of that.
You can be a bit slow sometimes.
I am.
Though,
I'm a little bit slow. Please welcome to the pod, Braeden Rhys.
Hi, Braeden.
Hi, Jess and Lauren. Thank you for having me. And yes, you were right. It's the 40 under 40. I am under 40, although I feel so much older on the inside.
Don't we all?
My partner always says you're as old as the man that you feel or the woman that you're feeling. And for me and him, we feel each other because we're both men and that's our relationship. And, luckily for me, I'm the youngest in this relationship. You probably hate that about this podcast, but, rub it in. But he's my age because he's the one feeling me.
Yeah, that's it. But then you're feeling older, aren't you?
Yeah, my favourite.
Oh my God, I love it already.
But no, you're right. It's 40 under 40 Entrepreneur of the Year. It was such an incredible experience last year to win that award. I'm up for another award this year for the Marketing Agency of the Year. So we're up for another award.
Wow, congratulations. That's pretty cool.
I'm glad that you led with that because we're going to talk about all these things that you've achieved so far in a very short life so far because 40 under 40, you're not 40 yet, but that's still very young.
No, I'm only 33 this year.
Oh,
wow.
We're the same age.
Oh, there we go. See,
you are.
We're young.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Lauren's younger than me and I'm feeling her, so that's even better.
Yeah.
Love that.
Let's start this off by rewinding all the way back to the beginning for you.
Yeah, fab. What do you want to know?
Well, let's start at the beginning. How old were you when you started to feel like maybe you were gay?
First thing that came to my mind, so let's start at the beginning. I went straight into Sound of Music.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
I was like, that's a very good place to start, just not. Look, I was that kid at primary school that didn't know why he had lots of friends that were girls. I wasn't into sport, I was very arty, and so I led with that. And, lo and behold, once I got to high school, I kind of thought, I'm still not into this sport shit. So I'm going to keep doing the art stuff because that's me. And I struggled with that all the way through, I think, to year 10. And then the penny kind of dropped by that point. But I, at the same time, was in trying to not jump around too much, but parents love me no matter what. So I want to make sure I get that out of the way first because that's a big point to my coming out journey because I know there's a lot of people out there in the queer community that just don't have that. They don't have parents that don't judge because of their sexuality or their gender or whatever it might be. And so I'm fortunate to have parents that are very accepting and open and love me no matter what. So I want to lead with that in case I forget to say it later. So my coming out story really started where I didn't know where to place myself in my identity because I was in the religious community. So to go to the high school I went to, my parents wanted the best education for me and I went to a private religious Christian Anglican come what may high school in Campbelltown called Broughton Anglican College. And to get into that school, I had to get a letter from the minister at church. So I thought, well, I'll do this. So I was part of the church community before I got into high school and mum took me to church because I wanted to go to this school and she wanted me to go by myself. So she went with me and mum was very active in the church world as well prior to me wanting to go to this school, but hadn't been up until that point when I'm like, I want to go to school with all the duckies swimming in the pond and it's green and it's pretty. Didn't want to go to the sports school where it was scary because everyone
fair.
Didn't shave or didn't look after themselves. It was a very rough area in Campbelltown with that school. It was either Ambervale High School or this private school that, was very pretty and everyone was wearing a suit. And I was attracted to the glamour of it first. But it was the opportunities that came from that as well. So mum and I went to church. got the letter from the minister, went to the school. I became very actively involved in the church. So I became a youth minister because I just thought, well, maybe this is a way I can give back. I was really heavily into the doctrine at that point, and I thought I was really helping people. And at the same time, while I was going through high school and learning about myself, I was like, well, I'm different. I'm not fitting in here. I knew I was different before I got here and before I did the church stuff, but now I'm realizing I don't fit this narrative of the Bible. I'm reading this book that says it's Adam and Eve, but where's Steve? Or, where's Eve and Evelyn? Like there's no gender diversity here. And it was confronting because I had little kids coming up to me going, where is the girl in my story? Where's the boy in my story for me? And it was confronting because the church was telling me I had to deny this part of myself because it was the devil controlling me and saying, if I pray hard enough, I'll pray the gay away, which is essentially what the church was telling me to do. And it was a challenging time because I had young people questioning themselves and I didn't want to hurt them and say to them, God doesn't love you because you're a gay or a lesbian or you don't know what you are and it's Adam and Eve. And if you don't fit that narrative, I'm sorry, God doesn't love you. We were always taught in church that God loves you no matter what. And that's kind of the way that the Anglican church and faith goes. But unfortunately, when I decided to confront the church and go, look, this is me. This pray the gay away stuff is not working for me. It's so inauthentic. It's not who I am. And you're trying to make me something I'm not. And these kids are trusting me with very sensitive information about themselves. And I'm telling them that God loves them no matter what. But you're telling me I have to deny myself to do God's work. And I couldn't grasp that narrative of helping all these people and still holding myself back from being my most authentic self. So I left the church and went, well, where do I go now? Prefacing the fact that my parents love me no matter what. I came out to them.
Yeah.
Well, my coming out story is a bit weird. Once I left the church sort of stuff and my parents were like, what's going on? I had a bit of a mental breakdown and I decided I would run off to this boy's house. Mum and Dad went to bed. I said, I'll take the rubbish out. And so I took the rubbish out and jumped in a taxi, didn't I? And went to this guy's house with my suitcase, my bag for school and my uniform. And we, did some things. It got hot and spicy and heavy at his house. He snuck me in and then he took the doorknob off his door so his mum couldn't get in because she didn't know that I was there. So it was one of those sort of like completely hush-hush situations.
Wow.
And then he drove me to school. But I went to school with a hickey on my neck and a scarf that wasn't authorised by the school to be worn. And so when the uniform Gestapo came around, they were like, you can't wear that. That's not part of uniform. Took it off and they're like, oh, what's this on your neck? And I'm like, oh, it's a rash from a tree.
Poison ivy.
That's a good
Poison
excuse.
ivy. I'm like, oh, I've got a rash. I must have touched something and maybe I'm allergic to something. They're like, get to the office. I went to the office. Meanwhile, my parents had rung the school.
Meanwhile, your parents are like, wow, he took the rubbish really far away.
Yeah.
Where the hell is our son? And so they had rung the school and they were like, where's our child? In a panic because I wasn't answering my phone because I was embarrassed about the whole thing. Like I had never done anything like that before, ever. And so that happened. They came to the school, picked me up, had to go home with them. And the option there was to kind of sit there and hash it out with them. It's like, why did you run away? Mum saw the thing on my neck and she's like, okay, he's done something sexually. And so the option was to come out. And surprisingly, they took it well. Mum said to me and my dad said to me as well, we loved you before you were gay. Why would that change now? You never had to run away. You didn't have to hide this. But I think as someone that came from the church community where I was told to hide it so much, and then it's not so much the family unit because they're so accepting, it's the outside world. And I think as individuals in the queer community, we tend to get swept away in what everybody else thinks about it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we're just like, oh, well, look, we have to make everybody else happy. But we always forget, hang on, it starts with us. We have to be happy. And RuPaul always says, how the hell can you love anyone else if you don't love yourself? And that sort of mantra is really true. And I'm not overly a fan of RuPaul, but I do love that statement about authenticity. You need to love and own yourself and be unique to yourself. You can't always let all this other stuff come in from everywhere else making you something you're not. And so my coming out story is a bit dynamic in that regard. But then once I knew my parents were by my side with it all, I was like, oh, shit, okay, I could have come out ages ago. I didn't have to run away or do these things. Like I was fortunate to have family like that. And then I fell into the gay scene a bit more. I'm like, well, I turned 18 by that point. I'm going to go and party at Oxford Street. So I went to Arc and Stonewall and met drag queens and DJs and started getting an idea of what my tribe was. Because at that point, I didn't really know, because I went from the church, family unit, really supportive, left the church, identity crisis. Well, who the hell is Braeden outside of home? And so, yeah, the gay scene was a whirlwind from that point forward. But yeah, I always say to people, if I could snort it, lick it, fuck it, or anything else, insert here, I did it. And that's kind of how I landed at what I am and what I do today.
That's the road to self-discovery though, isn't it?
It is. And, and it's paved with heaps of, trauma and lived experiences. Like, I'm no stranger to having a drug addiction. And not that I have one now, but I did. I fell into party drugs when I was very young and said yes to everything because it was so exciting and it was glitter and confetti. I'd be the first one to put my hand up and say, I bought the CD and the T-shirt and the hat at Stonewall when they used to sell all those DJ albums. I was like, oh, I've got to have the Passions album that was done by DJ Dan Murphy at that point in time. And I did buy the T-shirt. I went to the bathroom, changed the shirt, and I had the Stonewall emblem. I spoke to the manager and got my little VIP members card. Like, I fully subscribed to the gay scene, but survived it. So, I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly of it. You have to have those experiences to really work out who you are, I think.
Yeah.
And we fall into that because gay culture isn't injected into our growing up. So when we do turn 18 and we have all this opportunity, we suddenly feel the need to take everything from 0 to 200 just to be able to say we've experienced what this feels like.
Exactly.
We now know how are we going to try and discover, as you said, your tribe.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times that's where you find those people is at the clubs, in the scene, because they're living it and they're doing it. It's not as simple as, especially growing up in the 90s and even people before us, it's not as simple as finding your tribe at school and just hanging with all the queer kids, because that didn't happen back then.
I wish that was a thing. I wish they had a gay club at school where you'd be like,
I know.
Oh, my tribe, but it's really challenging. I think it's a lot more accepting now. Things have changed.
Yeah.
I remember that high school I went to, myself and one other person were openly gay by that point, because we had the school was very confronting because I went and saw a counsellor. My high school made me go and see a shrink. And I have respect for people in all different professions, but how this school went about it wasn't fun. I had to go and see a counsellor because it was the devil, gay, this is not right. And so every roll call when they did Bible, I had to go and talk to the shrink. So, by that point, word got out about my sexuality to the point where I openly at a school assembly came up and said, well, to address everyone in the room, yes, I am gay. And yes, I'm proud about this. Like,
fuck yes.
I took my ground at that point towards the last 2 years of schooling, because I got sick of, I think, people and the school, very much guilty of doing it as well, taking advantage of everything I did, because I was an art student, I was drama, I was music. So I was involved in all these creative extracurricular stuff, and the school used me as their show pony, but then were embarrassed by my sexuality. And I'm like, nah, fuck that. I'm going to own this, and I'm going to, you know what, you want to use me? Well, use all of me or none of me at all. There's none of this pick what you want situation.
I love that.
Take me as I
love
am.
that. You owned your truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And by that point, I got to that, it's the last 2 years of schooling for me. And I'm in the same, I guess, ilk as both of you, because we're in our 30s. Well, you're feeling each other, so someone's in their 30s.
Unfortunately, we're both in the 30s bracket, so that doesn't change.
But, at that point, I had those 2 years to really self-reflect and focus on who I was and who I wanted to be. And I started really embracing my own identity and going, well, you know what? If you're not my person, you're not my person. I'm not going to change myself for you. And that has made me very strong. And I'm very cutthroat in my relationships with family that haven't accepted me. And then sadly, on dad's side of the family, there's quite a lot of them where I've just gone, well, if you're not going to love me like my parents love me for me, then I don't have space for you in my life, because I only want to surround myself with positive people.
Yeah.
So, and that can be really confronting to kind of go down the line of like, okay, well, this is who I am. This is my truth. And you got family going, well, we don't like this. So it's like, well, that's who I am. As tricky as what it can be, you need to really think about the relationships you allow in your life, because those projected insecurities from family or friends or people you work with or whatever, you can't let that shit in, because once you let that in, it starts to erode at you and you start changing and you start to do stupid shit like I did when I went down the drug route. It was fun and exciting at the time, but I'm paying for it now. If you think about it this way, kids, if you're listening, if you're 16, 17, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to go to the gay scene and have some party pills and whatever, just remember, when you're in your 30s, you're going to have to go and get yourself a gastroenterologist, maybe someone to do with your liver and your heart and a few other things. And these are all expenses that you don't want to have because you made stupid life choices in that development phase. Parties are fun, but just remember, don't go too hard on it or hard at all. Don't touch it at all.
You can still immerse yourself safely.
Yeah, you can immerse yourself safely. You can have a few cocktails and not add anything to it. But, stuff that comes and haunts you later. And I'm like, oh, I had a lot of fun, but I'm paying for it now. Like, how many times do I need to go and see a GP for a blood test because of silly mistakes I made? But again, I've learned from them. And now I'm just like, word of caution to young people in the queer scene, don't overdo it.
Well, that's important that you're able to be that voice to just give that caution and be kind of an idol and inspiration for the younger people in the queer community.
Well, you can advocate for like partying safe. I remember going to schoolies and there was all these things about like party safe, but no one talks about that in terms of the queer community and in terms of queer culture. So that's just another step of education that we're missing out on here.
ACON does push this, and they push, sexual health and, understanding, using a rubber, no glove, no love, as we used to call it.
Oh, that's a good one.
If there's no glove, no love, but there's not enough education around what happens beyond that point. Like, what if we're in a state of mind where we forget to put the glove on?
Yeah.
No one really talks about this issue. And it's interesting because a lot of young people open themselves up to experimenting and exploring, and it's okay to do this, but there's not enough information about what happens, because what we forget is in the moment we're having lots of fun and we're doing amazing stuff, and maybe, touch wood, we haven't gotten sick from our silly mistakes we've made or choices we've made because we've been really lucky. Some people don't make it that lucky. Some people do get lifelong diseases as a result of poor choices or accidents, or just not thinking before they acted because they were doing something else that was really fun at the time. And then other people take it too far and, go with us. And so I've seen both sides of it, and I've had friends go through both of those scenarios I've just given, and it's been really confronting to see and to know that I had scathed through that part of my life very by chance. I say by luck, really. Like, I did a lot of times, I was wearing no glove and I was having lots of love. And in those moments, I probably could have caught something or gotten sick, and I didn't. When you're young, you think you're invincible, and I did. Oh, I'm young, it won't happen to me. That's only an old person's thing. You know what? The amount of 78ers I spoke to through my early life in the gay scene, and this kind of probably pivots towards a bit more of my background in this, is that when I entered the gay scene fresh out of the church, I thought, well, I do things I operate a million miles an hour. I have high functioning autism, so I just like to go for gold and go really quickly at things, go hard or go home. And so I gravitated towards the adult industry as a gay guy, and I became a sex worker. And surprisingly, a lot of my clients that I met and the people I met were older gentlemen, and they had so much lived experience. And the stories that they shared with me, I'm like, oh my God, like, young people take this for granted. You paved the way for us to be able to walk down the street holding hands and being able to celebrate our love and our identity and to be free and without judgment to some capacity, but not as much as what there was for the 78ers, as an example. And I learned a lot through those stories that they shared with me. And it gives me a lot of self-reflection at that point in time, that when I was traversing through my gender and my identity and becoming who I am today, I always reflect on those conversations, and I'm like, just remember that there was someone before that went through a lot worse and a lot harder than us, and respect the fact that we shouldn't really stuff with the narrative for our own community, because we do kind of slip through the cracks of a lot of things. And I think when we start eroding away the path that's been paved for our community by people before us, we should respect that and not, rock the boat too much and then have things taken away.
Yeah, that's true. It's funny, that kind of goes into what I had this conversation with Lauren and my mum yesterday, actually, because we had gone to a press day and we were listening to a lot of other people's lived experience. And this podcast is probably the most that I've ever immersed myself into queer culture and the queer scene, because I kind of felt like I wanted to be one of those people that didn't rock the boat. I wanted to be not part of the reason people don't like us. Like, I didn't want to be a marching gay because I might be part of the problem, when really that's my truth. I am this person. I can't change that. I want to live unapologetically myself, but then I'm still going, oh, well, I'm not going to go to this just in case someone that I know has a problem with that and I don't want to add to the reason that they dislike our community. I need to change that mindset. And I think this podcast has done a lot of that. But it's like, you do have to be so careful because, you know, you don't want to add to the negativity of the community and you always want to be part of the positivity. And that's a hard push and pull, especially like what I think sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's hard to pull yourself out of that too. It's like, what is the right thing to do and what is the wrong thing to do? Because I want to be genuinely myself and genuine for my community, but I don't want to rock the boat.
Exactly. And it's hard because there's no information out there that guides that process for everyone. And everyone wants to be unique in their own selves. I think when people rock the boat is trying to be too much like someone else. I think that in our community, what I find the most toxic thing about the queer community is that when we're young and we're trying to find our tribe, we emulate too much of one person, or we gravitate too hard to one thing. Case in point, drag queens. Now, I am a drag queen. I don't dabble in the gay scene as much as the party queens or the club girls do. All credit to them. They've got more stamina than me. I like to do my weddings and hens parties and corporate gigs and take it off and call it a night. Girls that do it 3 nights a week or hop clubs up Oxford Street, kudos to you girls. Love your stuff. Not for me. I think I could do a couple of shows, but because I sing live, I gas out quite quickly. And, you know, I want to be 100% every time I perform. Lip sync queens have it so much easier than us live singing drag queens. We need good sound, good lighting, and lots of water, because when we drink alcohol, sometimes it fucks our voice.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I always say, if you want me to have a shot, I'll only sound better to me and no one else.
Yeah, exactly. And people are like, why don't you drinking? I'm like, I can drink after the show, but as soon as I pop alcohol in here, game over. Like, you want me to hit those high notes? Like, how hard do I have to squeeze my own balls to get, like, you know, we're not trying to do that. We want to do it naturally, but it does help that I've got a great partner that's very satisfying in bed. And those high notes sometimes come much more easily than others. But it is interesting because I find that a lot of performers and whether or not this is something I'm still yet to work out myself, but not that I'm not judging this. But from outsider looking in or insider looking in as well, I find that a lot of people can't switch off from being their performer self and their real self. I find that some people gravitate into performance or the queer community and become a drag queen, and then they wash the makeup off, but they're still the drag queen. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
drag queens that can turn it on and that's their character in drag. Like, for example, myself as Braeden right now, very different to Kara Zmatiq, who is very flamboyant, which is my alter ego in drag, and is warm and bubbly and exciting. I'm very black and white and direct and somewhat confrontational on topics I'm passionate about. Kara Zmatiq is just flying the flag for equality and acceptance and good times.
Yeah.
Very different between the two sides of me as a performer. But I find that a lot of people they get stuck along the way. They're like, oh, well, I'll stick to this group because it's accepted me, even though it's not really for them, or they're not really accepting them. It's like you've changed yourself to fit that narrative, and then they get stuck in this pattern, friendships and things that aren't quite real friendships. And I've experienced it, where I made friends with drag queens in Sydney and it didn't go too well. They tried to do the whole drag mum thing to me, and I'm like, no, I want to learn on my own terms. I don't want to be owned or stamped a brand from someone else. And they didn't take kindly to that. And so we kind of fell apart, and I lost gigs at venues because I didn't want to be controlled, or in my mind, I didn't want to be part of a pyramid scheme as a performer. Yeah. I'm like, hang on, I don't want to suck a queen or fuck a queen to get a gig at a club. That's selling myself short. If I can't get the gig on my own merit, I'm not about to lower my standards to get a gig that's not even going to pay the bills. Because by the time I'm been paid, I probably drunk that much alcohol after the show or had dinner or whatever, or paid my way home. That $300 they paid me at that club, gone.
Yeah.
It's about, I guess, realizing your self-worth. And I think a lot of the time young queer people fall into that space of undervaluing themselves and trying to match their value to someone else. And I see that pattern quite a lot in the queer community. And it's kind of why now when I move away from it, which I do, because I'm not heavily involved in the queer community, I'm a queer guy and my partner and I attend queer events and we participate in fabulous podcasts like this.
Yeah.
But we kind of sit from afar and watch and we're like, oh, I remember when I did that. And if I see people at the trip and fall, I'm like, hi, my name's Braeden. Do you mind if I just quickly just want to let you in on something, or can I buy you a drink and we can have a chat? You look really interesting. You look fabulous. And I always try and dive in and kind of steer it away from what could be a problem, because I can see the warning signs of a lot of people and I'm like, oh, if I just wish if someone said to them, be careful, they'd have a much better journey.
Yeah. That's really important that you're able to play that role, to go up to someone who didn't necessarily know that there's warning signs going on, but you're able to play that pivotal role and tell them, hey, I'm here for you.
And it doesn't happen all the time because I don't go out a lot, but when I do go out, I'm like, oh, this young kid, and they'll come over and they're like, oh, they try and hit on my partner and I'm like, we know where we stand with our relationship, and we're like, oh, we'll fluff up to that. I'm like, oh, we've still got it. We don't act on it, but it's like, oh, we get chatting to them and I'm like, oh, okay, we were there, we know this space, and have you thought about this and you thought about that, and are you using a glove?
Yeah.
You know your limits.
Yeah. Do you think that comes from this sense of instant acceptance? Because people think that I've discovered that I'm queer and I fit under this umbrella, so anyone under this umbrella I will feel safe with, when that's not necessarily the truth?
Yeah, I think because once we identify as gay, we just fit under this flag and we just assume, oh, well, everyone, like when you go to Mardi Gras, for example, and even though 90% of the audience at Mardi Gras is straight, people have this ideal view in an ideal world that everyone in the queer community, if you say you're gay, they're like, oh, another gay person, let's have a coffee.
It's not instant friendship.
It's not instant friendship. And it's sad that it isn't like that in any community group, any minority group of any sort. But I still feel, and like you said, I'm pretty much on the same page with you, that I think that when we go, I'm gay, I've got my home flag now. It's not the Australian flag, it's the gay flag. Everyone in this world is going to, accept me. It's going to be lollipops and unicorns and rainbows. And it really isn't. And I think there's that false perception that we fall under and fall into at a young age when we're trying to dabble our way through, that we just think we can trust everybody. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people, and few and far between. You will have good experiences and bad experiences, but people are on very different journeys, not the same journey as you. So I think it's always good to reflect and go, hang on, these are people doing their own lives in their own way. And sometimes it may not be the same as ours. And while we all might be part of the LGBTQI plus 1, 2, 3 alphabet, whatever else they choose to add on the end of it, all the colours of the rainbow, we're all very different. And I think that that's where people get lost. I picked a tribe that was completely left of centre, I think. I chose a minority and a minority. I chose sex workers that were gay in the gay scene, like in the like I went from church to like one extreme to the other. But it was an interesting journey because there was so much lived experiences that were shared with me. And so that's why I look at things probably a lot more objectively now than what I would have if I had have just, I'm just going to have a few cocktails and hang out with the drag queens and make that my tribe. I think it's really good to step outside of that and go, okay, well, what else is in the queer community? Go and explore, but just be aware of who you are and who you want to be, so you don't get pulled into multiple directions and start fragmenting who you are.
Yeah. And it sounds like you were always pretty aware of who you were as a person. I was going to ask you, when you were doing your youth minister work and you had the religious sector saying, oh, you should be this and you shouldn't be this.
Yeah.
Did that ever waver, like how you felt about yourself, thinking maybe you wouldn't be accepted? Or were you very headstrong saying, no, I know who I am and I feel very strongly about this and how religion is trying to make me feel about myself? Did you ever let that waver, or were you very headstrong the whole time?
No, I wavered because I was in a community that I thought, well, maybe this is wrong. Maybe they are right. I'm doing God's work and apparently that's a good thing to do. And if I keep praying hard enough and I keep doing this work for the ministry and helping people find truth and life and all of this fabulous stuff that the Bible says, as you can probably tell from how I'm saying this, I'm very sarcastic about it these days because I find a lot of grey area areas in that book, and I'm just like, oh, it just doesn't lend itself to all of society. There's so many gaps in there now that I can reflect on from lived experience, and I'm like, how did I not pick up on it before? Like when I read it now, I'm like, but there's so many gaps where other people don't fit into this narrative. And if he loves everyone, he should love everybody equally, because there's equality now. We're looking at this as a topic. And if equality is a thing and we're loved no matter what, then why can't everybody be loved and accepted equally? So there's that part of me that's like, well, if the church is going to judge me, am I wrong? Am I the problem? But then the strong part of me and the willpower in me, because I had really supportive parents that weren't overly religious, but they were part of the religious journey with me. The part that I think cracked that false sense of security in the church for me was the fact that I had family outside the church that didn't judge me, but then the church was judging me. And I was like, well, there has to be people outside this narrative and outside my family narrative that also don't judge me. And I think that's where the wake-up call was for me, that the church was not a safe space for me at that point in time for my understanding of myself and my sexuality and who I wanted to be and who I knew I was, because it was trying to change me and the world outside said, just be yourself.
Especially when your home base was telling you be yourself.
Yeah.
And that's so important because, as we mentioned, not everybody has that supportive home base. So for
Exactly.
you to have had that influence where you were living at that time as a kid, you knew that something was wrong here. Like you were being told two different things, one by one sector that you knew loved you no matter what, and one by you were like hoping that, you know, they're trying to spread love, but is it correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was very polarizing. It was very confronting because at home I was loved no matter what. And my family that support me today, which is mostly my mum's side of the family, and this is where it's kind of a bit shady, but you know, it's true. Mum's side of family, love me, support me no matter what. Dad and mum together, fabulous. Dad's family kind of all fell to the wayside because unfortunately my dad's sister said at my mum's birthday that she couldn't accept me for being gay in front of the whole family at her birthday party. At my mum said, I want you to do drag. Turn up to my birthday in drag, sing a few songs because I love this part of you and I love that you love performing and I'd love to have you perform. So I performed at her birthday and
That's so
all
special.
relatives were there. And it was a special moment to share with the family. And my dad's sister decided that was not okay or appropriate and said quite a few hurtful words behind the scenes that I didn't catch up on because I was performing for everyone, thinking there'd be no drama. And then my grandmother on my mum's side heard it and she said, I just think you should know this is what's being said behind me. And I don't know if you know that they think that way about you and my partner at the time that were also a performer and we're performing together. And so I asked my aunt, did you say these things? And she said, yes, I think what you're doing is disgusting. I think that this is degrading to women. I'm just thinking this is an art form. It's just performance. It's just costume. You go to Cirque du Soleil, they're all wearing a costume. Like go to a circus show or cabaret. They don't wear it 24 hours. This is a costume and I'm performing and I'm still your nephew. You can either accept me for me or get out. And that was a conversation I had with my auntie in my parents' house and she decided to leave. So I haven't spoken to her since. And that was an interesting moment. It was like, okay, it doesn't matter whether it's friends or family or colleagues, like I said earlier. Sometimes you got to let people go. And if they're not there to champion you for you, then you maybe need to look for a new group of people. In the queer community, we call it our chosen families. And it's very true. I had my mum and dad who are amazing, all of mum's family, amazing. Well, there's three people I could honestly say on dad's side of the family. My grandfather, love him so much. When my grandmother on my dad's side passed away, he's the only one I came out to beyond, like she passed away before this altercation with my dad's sister. And I came out to him before that birthday party and he didn't say a thing. He was like, I used to work in the cop shop in Sydney. He goes, I've seen it all. I was head of police. I've seen dealers and drag queens and gay people and you're still my grandson. And so it was interesting because when I came out to him and then that birthday party situation happened thereafter, he was there and he had a go at his own daughter, like about it. He's like, how can you say that to my grandson? Like you've been part of his life. When his parents went to work, you babysat. Like you've been around his life. It's not like she wasn't involved. The only people that I could honestly say, apart from my grandfather, who I love and who asked about all my drag stuff and asked about my partner and me and my partner go and see him and God love him. I do have a soft spot for him because he's the only family member that really accepted me for me on that side of the family, aside from my own father. And then my aunt and uncle on that side, but not Dad's sister, Jill and Graham. So Jill, Graham and Ron, they're my three amazing people on Dad's side of the family. And then my dad, Glenn, and my mum, Lynn, and then all of the relatives on Mum's side of the family. I don't want to name them all, but Janine and Shannon and Vicky, my grandmother.
Shout outs.
Yeah.
Shout outs my grandmother, Vicky, who died of cancer, but she supported my drag career quite a lot with op shopping. So she'd go to the op shops on the weekend and buy all the jewelry and costume. Go, oh, I found this fabulous ring or this jewelry I want for Kara Zmatiq. And then before she passed, she offered to get me something. She said, I want something that I can get you that you will remember me for. I just want to get all the grandkids something. And so the decision was made, which is why Kara Zmatiq has the coloured wig that she has, then the colour I stick to as a drag queen, she bought the wig. So my grandmother, before she passed, bought the pink and blue purpley hued wig, which is actually very hard to find online. We managed to buy 6 more of them because the one that she got me, it's been worn, but I haven't thrown it out. I've managed to find multiple versions the same, and I've had my partner, who's a hairstylist, fix them all. Many, many different updos, down, permed, whatever. They've all been restyled.
Amazing.
I haven't changed my colour scheme and things out of respect for my family that supported me and were part of that journey.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so special.
And she bought that wig for me, and that was what she wanted to do. And we sat down and we literally went through all these websites, and we chose the wig and we chose the colours together. Yeah, it's a soft spot for me because when people ask, why doesn't Kara Zmatiq ever change her wig or her makeup? It's because I have utmost respect for integrity and family and for acceptance and identity. And Kara Zmatiq's identity is the colours that Kara Zmatiq wears because it was chosen by my grandmother. So,
that's really beautiful.
Yeah, that's such a brilliant story to be able to share with people who do ask you though. And like, it's an ode to your gran every time you get to bring it up.
I love that. And that kind of brings me to my next question, I guess. We've spoken a bit about Kara Zmatiq and you've told such a beautiful story, but I wanted to know, when did you first start drag?
I've been doing drag now for 12 years.
Wow.
I realise I've been doing it that long. It's over a 12-year period, but like I don't do gay scene stuff where I'm constantly performing every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So like I'm not a club queen.
You're a busy man otherwise anyways.
I've started off doing drag in Sydney, and then I moved over to Newcastle Central Coast, and I had a stint there in a couple of the local venues, then pivoted into charity and non-for-profits. Then it got me onto Australia's Got Talent at that point, and my parents were there. Like I said, you know, the stories there from coming out to drag, they've always been part of the journey. And they were part of that journey with me. You know, they were in the video. If you ever get to watch the footage, it is online. I think I put the video on my website and stuff.
We watched it.
We've seen it.
We watched it.
Tearjerker.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, side note, Mum became a meme. It went all over. She's like, oh my God, I'm trending. I'm like, what? You don't even know what that word means. And she's like, I'm a meme. Because like, everyone was sharing a picture of her where she was crying and clapping in the audience, and it had the quote "adorbs" written over.
Mum's living.
She was a celebrity. It was good fun, but being able to be on a show like that, and that show is so curated, it's not funny, to the point where even entering the venue, walking upstairs, hi, welcome to Australia's Got Talent, what's your name? All that sort of shit that they did on that show. We had to walk up those stairs 12 times because they're like, oh, no, sorry, you're too far to the left. Do it again. Oh, too far to the right. And Mum's like, I didn't realise it was so fake.
Curated
Reality
for television.
TV is not real.
Mum's like, I'll never do reality TV again. But you know, because they drove up, I got flown because I was a contestant. Mum and Dad weren't going to come. And then they decided to drive and surprise me. And then the producers are like, oh my God, your parents are here. Would they be okay on camera? I'm like, well, as long as you don't make them do anything that they don't want to do. I said, because they're not unpaid actors. And that's exactly what they'll tell you.
Yeah.
And so they came for the journey, and then they became part of the footage. But people don't understand that thousands of people audition. Hundreds get whittled down to the short list. They take 150 or a couple 200 plus people go to Melbourne, where it was shot in 2016 when I did this. And because it didn't go out to 2017, but I was filmed in the end of 2016. The 100 that goes gets all the 4 yes votes and all that sort of stuff from the judges. Then you get sent an email after you've done it all saying, oh, while you might have got 4 yes votes on this show, that don't mean you're going to get shown on TV, because our producers are now going to choose from the people that got the 4 yes votes who's actually going to get shown on TV and in the show. So then that 100 plus people that got 4 yes votes gets whittled down to 45.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then from the 45 people, they choose 20 that make it onto TV as wildcard contestant or anything else. And so I'm sitting there going, but I just got 4 yes votes. And for like the weeks that passed after filming, I was getting emails from producers. I'm like, congratulations, you've progressed in the queue. And I'm like, oh my God, am I going to get shown on TV? Because I honestly thought, like probably most people do, everyone that auditions gets shown. You don't. And not all the people, and there were some amazing people on that show that got 4 yes votes. A guy that played piano, and he's a celebrity cruise guy, and he plays like rockabilly piano, and he plays it with his hands, and he gets his feet and plays with his feet. And that guy was incredible. He got 4 yes votes, never got shown on TV, didn't even like, and I'm just like, some amazing talent doesn't get shown. And so to make the cut that way was really humbling for me, because I didn't know, and now listeners now know that that's how that show works. It was an experience itself, because that show led itself to everything else. Ended up getting corporate bookings and hens parties and weddings. And so that 3 minutes on TV, not only for me when I bawled my eyes out at the end of when I got told you got 4 yes votes, you know, you're moving on. I'm like, woo. It was very surprising and shocking, because at that point in time, I had been subjected to so much ridicule from the queer community as a drag queen for not changing their wig and changing their makeup. And I didn't have validation as an entertainer that we look for from an audience and theatrical community. And so when they said, you've got 4 yes votes, it's a standing ovation, all I could do was cry, because everything I bottled up inside at that point as an entertainer was validated on that stage, because
made it all worth it.
It made it worth it. Not only did I share that moment with my parents, but that eye-opening moment of, I don't need to worry about what anyone else thinks about me. And that's validation for me and authenticity as an entertainer. So even though with me, I'm very strong-minded, Kara Zmatiq as the performer is a completely different identity for me. And I had never had validation outside my family or audiences I performed at. The queer community and some performers that were quite vicious in the drag scene eroded me to a point where I was very broken. And when I did that show, I was at the tipping point of, do I really want to continue doing this or not, because of how toxic the drag community can be. Getting that validation on stage and everything was quite overwhelming. So
I can imagine. Did you always plan on auditioning as Kara Zmatiq, or were you ever going to audition as Braeden?
I was given both opportunities. So when I met the producers, because they contacted me on Facebook, I thought it was a scam. I had an email come through going, oh, you want to audition for the show? And I'm like, who the fuck are you and why are you contacting me? So I stalked online to try and find this name, and I worked out the lady that contacted me was actually involved in the show and worked for Fremantle Media. And I followed her up and I said, oh, okay, sorry, I was cut you off at the knees on Facebook, but I thought it was fake. And so she said, well, we want you on as drag, but you sing. Do you want to do it as a boy or drag? I said, well, drag is something that I'm doing as a performer that I really love, and it's a creative outlet. And I think that would be very different to showcase this to Australia. Because for me, at that point in time, I had family that supported me no matter what, mum and dad and mum's family and the key people on dad's side of the fence. But it was interesting to get the option to do it, because the story that I think Australia needed at that point in time, and the tipping point, which I've seen over the years, because now Courtney Act has gone with the same storyline with his story about his upbringing and his family. But the first story that was ever shown on TV was mine, where they decided to show to Australia, and Kelly Osbourne commented and said, it's so lovely that your parents are here in the audience, because it shows a lot about diversity and acceptance in families in Australia. And she said that she applauded my mother for that. And so Kelly Osbourne made that comment, and it sticks in my mind, because what I wanted to get across with my audition was that this is just art. Sexuality means nothing to anyone other than you as an individual, and identity is really individual, important to you, and family family, and people out there should love their family no matter what, really. And to share that story with Australia's Got Talent and the audience was, that was a tick for me. That was the highlight of the audition, was being able to share that story, because it's something that Australia at that point in time, nothing had been shown about it. This acceptance, identity, diversity, inclusion, all these pronouns and things that have now popped out. Back then, in 2016, it was very much gay was Mardi Gras, that's all you heard about it, and it was very AIDS and HIV. It was all the dramatised illnesses and things within our community, and also the straight community, but, let's focus on the queer community.
Yeah.
And blame it on them. It's our fault.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to be able to share that story on that show and have that aired. That was humbling, and I just felt like it paved a way for our community to have the confidence to be able to hopefully have those conversations with their parents or their family without fear of judgment or persecution or anything like that, because my parents were a part of that process. And I think that story being shared with Australia started the conversation. We were probably all having that conversation behind the scenes, but no one had fully shoved it in people's face on national television and said, it's okay. Mum and dad can love you no matter what. They can be part of your creative journey as a queer individual. It's okay to be queer, I think, is the storyline that we shared on that show. Being queer doesn't stop love from your family or the people that support or champion you. And I think that had a lot of power.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. As a performer, I just want to touch on one thing that you said as well, was that validation that you got from being on the show. Yeah. And the fact that there's not one way to be a certain something. No. You said you were copping all this flack for not wearing different wigs and not changing your style and not following the same path that other drag performers do follow. But it's very important to recognize that there's not one way to achieve something. Oh. And I feel like we do fall into that. Blah, blah did it this way, so that's the path I have to take. That's so untrue. It's the most untrue thing. And I think we're starting to learn now that art is so subjective. Yeah. And what we like and what the next person likes is not the same thing. And we don't have to follow in someone else's footsteps and do the same rounds that they've done to get the same amount of validation. That's the one thing that hit home to me with what you said there, because I think that we all believe there's only one way to success or one way to what we want to achieve in life. And it's so not the truth.
Exactly. And, just touching on that, I said, I don't think I'd wish my journey on anybody. It was very polarizing. I wouldn't say, oh, yeah, go and tell your parents that you tripped and fell and hit a tree and got a bruise on your neck and, or become a sex worker to understand your sexuality. Now, mind you, though, that was a very eye-opening experience for me and lent itself to my career in marketing and PR and continuity, which is what Kara Zmatiq is, which is when people book Kara Zmatiq, they see the photo and what walks in the door is the photo.
Yeah.
They look online like, oh my God, she's amazing. They love what they see. They want to see that. Mm-hmm. I think that's where drag queens get it wrong. And this is coming from me as a marketer and a publicist and someone in business and strategy with my company, is that drag is part of where I kind of infuse all those elements. And that's where colour and branding and all of that becomes really important. I could do one gig today and not do gig for the next 3 months, just keep recirculating photos. As far as you know, I'm booked and busy.
One other thing I wanted to touch on really quickly was that you said you prefer the term gender illusionist to drag queen. Can we touch on that? Why is that?
Because gender has no label for me. In drag, I'm obviously a boy in makeup and costuming, but I find the term drag, I don't like it. And even on Australia's Got Talent, I was like, I don't really like the term. I just don't like it because I find that it diminishes the art. It's just a drag. Like I don't really like the word itself.
I get it.
Whereas I call it gender illusion, it kind of spruces it up a little bit. It's like, oh, it's an illusion, because it is. The art of illusion is the makeup, the costuming, the character we put on as a performer. And I also blame it on my own lived experiences as well, dealing with that part of our queer community. I haven't had the best experience in the drag scene, which is why I have nothing to do with the drag scene per se. I have moved heavily into now the theatre scene. So I've moved into the cabaret, the burlesque, the circus. That's where I thrive the most. It's in the diversity of art, not people's subjected opinions or skewed views on what one drag queen should be.
Yeah.
Hence why I'm not a big fan of certain drag queens out there with TV shows that try and tell certain performers that they are not good enough because it's not the narrative of that performer or a subjective opinion. I hate drag shows where drag queens judge other drag queens. And while I was a guest judge on the First Nations drag queen competition for World Pride, I wasn't judging it based on everyone looking different to me. What I was judging it on was conviction. When you performed, did you sell a story that I was like, oh my God, this person connects with that story. I can feel it. I can breathe it. Yes. Because as a performer, that's what I like to do.
Yeah.
My art's not based on my costume, my wig, nothing changes. And, sorry, drag queens out there, but it's never going to fucking change. I'm sticking to my colour scheme and I know who Kara Zmatiq is. And I don't have to change myself because the audiences are bored, put it that way, because you can't keep doing the same routine day in, day out. I still have to learn 300 songs, and I do. I've got heaps of songs in my repertoire and heaps of different costumes, but the uniform stays the same.
And the golden word you said then was connection.
Yeah.
Building that connection, because you're not going to get anywhere if you don't have a connection with your audience or with the people that you're trying to have this amazing experience with. If you're not personable and if you're not relatable and you're not selling that connection, you've got nothing really.
And art is not a one size fits all.
Absolutely not.
No. And that's the problem in the drag scene. And that's the problem where I see a lot of it fall into. It's that they try and go, oh, well, I must do it this way. I have to have a blonde wig. I've got to do crass stuff. I have to have a name that's named after an accessory or a bag. I chose the name Kara Zmatiq because I'd won so many awards as a male performer where I was called Kara Zmatiq Vocalist of the Year. But I didn't want to have the word spelt the same way, which is why a lot of people struggle to understand. They're like, what the hell is that?
No, don't worry about that. It's just Lauren.
It was just me.
You're not alone. You're not alone.
It took me way
I had to
longer.
register the domain name getaqueen.com because no one knows how to spell my drag name. So, I thought I was smart when I came up with it, but people are like, Kara Zmatiq. Oh, I get it now.
Yeah, it took me a second, I think, after a few of our email correspondence. And there was one moment I was sitting there and I went to Jess. I was like, oh my God, I get it now. And she's like, what? And
I was like, Jesus,
oh.
it took you that long?
Got to say it really fast.
Yeah.
Well, we've spoken a lot about all the things that you've done and all the things that you've achieved, but what's next for you as Braeden and as Kara Zmatiq?
Kara Zmatiq's really busy with cabaret shows. So interestingly, I've combined my passion in business and marketing and identity. And one thing I reign true on, which is even on my business card, is unapologetic authenticity. It's the big part.
I love it.
Of me. It's all about fuck what the world thinks, challenge the status quo, be your most authentic self, and the right people will come to you. It's not about trying to be a people pleaser and satisfy everyone, because then you're not happy in yourself.
Oh, fuck, I love that.
Yeah.
Everything of my business and my brand and everything I engrave into everything I've created as an artist and as a business person is about just be you. Be true to you, and you'll be able to attract the right success, the right customers, the right people, the right community, the right tribe, your chosen family. It all falls into line when you are you. For Braeden, at the moment, I'm studying law.
Wow. Just to add more things.
Add one more piece of paper, just one more.
Yeah.
The idea here is to go into commercial law because I come from a marketing PR world. And then my passion will be working with people that are victims of crime and people that have gone through similar situations to me within the queer community and outside the queer community, especially youth that have gone through trauma or identity as an issue or fallen into things that have steered them off course to their own success story and their own life path. I'd love to help them in that legal process. So that's something that I'm really passionate about and probably will do philanthropically or, by way of pro bono if it ends up not being where the money is, but it's where my heart is. Alongside that, obviously, marketing and PR reigns true through everything that I do, which is helping businesses to be their unapologetic selves and translate who they are as owners of businesses into their brand and their products and their services. And that's something I'm still doing. So over the 6 years, I've created, one, two, I'm looking at the business card. It's 5 or 6. So I've got another brand coming, but I haven't announced it.
That's cool.
See, continuity.
Yeah,
Love
look at
it.
the jacket. I love
Fancy.
it.
So as a business person, what I do with businesses worldwide is go through their business plans, work out their strategy. I think a lot of people, what they tend to do is they fail to plan, which inevitably is planning to fail. And as a result, they just plug holes and all they do is have a sinking ship that eventually just cracks in half like the Titanic and goes down. So the idea there is to help people connect their authentic selves to their companies and manage their marketing and PR through that growth phase so they can help together, we can help them reach their potential, which is what we do with my company Axis, which is all about living life and doing business on the axis, which I believe that with my lived experience and my story makes a lot of sense as to being the drag queen, former escort to successful business person. But soiree cabaret is where Kara Zmatiq is heading. It's amazing. It was me and an old, no, I shouldn't say old, I don't mean it that way. I mean, like a friend from the past that's still part of my life today who is a theatre lover by heart and musician. And I met her in Newcastle. Her name's Narelle. And we started soiree together in Newcastle. It's where Kara Zmatiq, I guess, career took off in the mainstream just before Australia's Got Talent really pushed it. And we did all these cabaret dinner shows across Newcastle and it went really, really well. And she was my MC and we worked together on putting these shows together, just her and I. And it's evolved now with her as a performer still these days because she's kind of retired but still in the game if I ever wanted to call on her for a show. But she's left the business to me in some capacity here where now I handle multiple entertainers across Australia as an entertainment.
Wow.
And I put all these fabulous performers into corporate events and weddings and hens parties. I work with restaurants and cafes and bars and nightclubs, trying to bring diversity into businesses. So again, it's very still much what I'm passionate about. We've got cabaret shows in Bundanoon at a pub hotel that's never seen a drag queen up until the Mardi Gras event we did this year. And I performed at their Mardi Gras event and now they want to do more of it. And it's had such a success with the queer community because the queer community out here in the Southern Highlands corridor, which is kind of between Wollongong and Canberra, there isn't a lot for them. There's a community, but it's like, well, we have to go to Sydney. So
Yeah.
what I'm doing is creating shows and opportunities. And so as Kara Zmatiq, I've met these venues. I'm like, let's work on some shows together. So I've got burlesque performers and strippers and dancers and contortionists and aerialists and just some amazing diverse talent from within the queer community and outside the queer community that are advocates and family, like supporters of our community. And we're all working together to create shows and produce season 2 of them. Collectively, me and my alter ego are doing amazing things in the theatre space with that. So
that sounds amazing.
Yeah, I love that.
like I said before, I was a drag queen in a drag scene that didn't love me or support me, and it challenged me a lot. And now I want to showcase to performers that there is an environment they can go to where being different and unique is okay. I'm not going to judge you for it. I'm going to work with you on that and create amazing experiences together to hopefully showcase to our audiences that it's okay to be you.
Yeah.
Kind of what the whole narrative is for soiree and what Kara Zmatiq's all about. I've got a 4K event I'm doing. The 4K Foundation's all about youth. And it's a sad organisation, but it's about youth that get displaced from family, whether they're not they're, neurodivergent or not gender the parents wanted and all this sort of stuff. That stuff still goes on today. But to be part of that event and raise money for an organisation that is supporting youth that are going through that challenging time of acceptance and identity. And again, we try to fit in as humans, but the best thing to do is stand out. But at that point in our lives, it can be a bit tricky. That's what that organisation is helping these kids do, find a place, find their feet, be themselves. And to be part of that event as a performer and to be an ambassador for that will be amazing. So it's nice to know that heteronormative or outside the queer community events are bringing me in to champion these elements of life, because we are there. The rainbow's going nowhere.
Yeah.
Our tribe still is there, and it's good to champion that. So, yeah, Kara Zmatiq, like I said, as a drag performer, I'm very heavily involved in non-for-profit events and private functions and weddings, which I love, celebrating love. And when I hear them do their vows and then I either crash the wedding because that's what I've been booked to do, or I turn up at the reception and shock all the guests that have never seen a drag queen in their life. I did an event in Bulli, And I walked in, it was just a bunch of truckies sitting down, like with their legs spread open. And I'm like, you've never seen a drag queen in your life or would have ever gone to a gay bar. And I've powered through and I've come in singing Like a Virgin by Madonna. And sequin in a really short sequin dress. And they're just their mouths hit the floor. And this lady was holding a baby and I sat on her husband's lap and he's like, I'm married. And I'm like, well, it's a threesome. So, like, I love having fun with people and pushing the envelope on what is okay, because it's about having fun. It's about celebrating diversity.
And it's a performance, like you've said. It's not you as Braeden saying, hey guys, this is a threesome.
Here's my number.
Yeah. You're there to entertain and it sounds like you do an amazing job. So kudos to you and good luck with everything that's coming up. You sound like you're doing amazing things for everybody.
Not just
don't get involved in the drama and the politics. I think that's probably the short version. I like to sit from a distance and go, well, I'll make my own decision. And if I think my decision or my voice needs to be heard on topics that are being skipped or issues that need to be addressed, then I say something. But the politics and the he said, she said, and the the toxicity of stuff, I'm like, man, I just don't have time for that. I'm busy with all this other shit. I've got to
And you are.
You are busy.
And my partner's amazing. And if he could jump in, if he was home, he'd jump in and go, hi.
Shout out.
Shout out to Patty, good old Patrick. The one thing I want people to take away on connection, identity, and relationships is that lead with your heart and integrity, because that's what people gravitate to. That's what people love about you. So many times in the queer community, we can get lost by the smoke and mirrors and we think that what we see in front of us is all that matters. It's on the inside that matters the most. And if you can understand that and connect with that, that is where success comes from. And if you can amplify what's on the inside out, that's when people come towards you. That's where you get your connections from. It's where your family, your tribe and everything resonates. It's not the vapid vein stuff within our queer community that we should be focusing on. It's the heart that matters. And I can honestly say that my relationship now, my relationship with the family that I've chosen and my family that I have that love and support me, it's about the connection, genuine love and care and passion there that we all share for each other. Yeah, listeners, take that to heart and keep that in the back of your mind next time you meet someone on Grindr or Bumble or Tinder, or you're out at a club and someone offers you a drink. Have a chat first. Maybe a couple hours of conversation before we show them our jock straps and G-strings. Maybe you need to have 2 or 3, 4 dates to make sure that that is your person, and you'll be able to work it out really quickly. But lead with the heart and never be afraid to be your most unapologetic, authentic self, because that's the best version of you.
Wow.
I think that's the best kind of advice to close this conversation
on.
I don't know how we can top that.
That is such amazing advice to anyone listening to Braeden right now. Oh my God. Thank you so much for joining us for this chat.
Thank you so much. I feel inspired now.
I do. I feel so inspired. And thank you for sharing your journey. Thank you for sharing the hard parts to talk about and the shady parts to talk about and then ending on that beautiful advice, because it is important that we can stay so genuinely unapologetically ourselves, and to be as successful as you are and for people to hear that's how you got there, that's what's important.
Yeah.
It's not the awards, it's not the accolades, it's nothing about that. It's literally leading with the heart and the real connections you have who also gravitate to you by being your authentic self. Don't try and copy everybody else, just be you.
The perfect way to end off.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you so much for joining us, Braeden. We wish you nothing but the best for the future, and we'll put all of your socials in the episode so people can follow Kara Zmatiq. And hopefully we'll be able to catch one of those cabaret shows that you do.
Yeah.
Would love to have you there dancing and singing along. Whenever you're around, or if you come and see a show, let me know, make yourselves known. Open invitation for you to come to any of the shows that come up. I'll make sure there's tickets set aside if there's ever a show on or a cabaret show. Just let me know you want to come and you can come as my VIPs.
Oh, that's so special. Thank you. Thank you so much again, Braeden.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. And we'll keep up to date with you with everything that's going on for you.
Me too. I'll be shouting you out all over my network as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Wow. For anyone who has listened to Braeden's episode with us today, I hope that you've really taken away his message, especially about the furthest you're going to get in this lifetime is just by being yourself and being that unapologetic version of you.
And that it's okay for you to create your own safe space and cut people out when they're not being part of that safe space.
You can be you and have people celebrate you.
Yeah. This has been another fabulous episode. A long one, but a fabulous one.
It has been. And, you know, I love that we get to speak to so many amazing people and hear their stories. And I know personally, and I know for you as well, like we never take for granted the fact that we get to do this.
Not at all.
I hope everyone has just enjoyed our journey doing this as well as listening to everyone else's journeys that have been on.
Yeah.
So with that,
until next time,
stay gay, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, you're talking about, we're talking about just gay stuff.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Just Gay Stuff. Make sure to follow us at Just Gay Stuff Podcast on all your socials and write to us with your stories at justgaystuffpodcast@gmail.com.